But ecosystems only operate with what they have. Isn't that a nice principle? And then it's the creativity, the innovativeness, the perseverance, the capacity to adapt to new conditions that makes you thrive and evolve from scarcity to abundance. We economists, I'm trained as an economist and I have an MBA. We economists, we need scarcity. Because there's no scarcity, we're useless. So we'll do everything we can to make poverty the only sustainable phenomena in society. Because as long as there's poverty, there is need, there is scarcity of resources, and then we're in business. But we need to change our thinking as fundamental as this proverb suggests. If you give a man a fish, he will not be hungry for the day. If you teach him how to fish, that's what we're stuck with. We have wisdom of the past that is not taking us to the future. In one of the opening quotes in the book, I mentioned that if we only teach our children everything we know, they can only do as bad as we do. We have to create space for innovation, for being different, for thinking different. And this is really what we have to focus on. Now, looking at all the innovations, and that's the last chapter of my book, I see 21 principles of these innovations. I'm not going to bore you with 21. Those who had the courage to sign up for tomorrow, you'll get them. But those who are happy with tonight, I give you 4. And the principles of innovations is first and foremost that whatever we innovate with is inspired by how ecosystems work and evolve. Because natural systems always change. It never is the same. And so change is the only constant. Every innovation is sustainable, but every innovation has been benchmarked. I mean, it's been around for a couple million years. So it is proven to work. And I think that is the first principle. Let's just screen whatever comes to us as an innovation, and we have to ask ourselves, do we see this in ecosystems operating and benchmarked? Let's adopt it. If not, forget about it. Second principle. First and foremost, whatever we do, it's based on the laws of physics. I'm so sorry, scrap biology. I'm not saying scrap it, but don't put it as a priority. The laws of physics are predictable. They never change. You know, the beauty is that in physics, everything is always the same. There are no exceptions. Do we realize what it means? The apple always falls down from the tree. Never, never different. Hot air always rises. If we want business, innovation to be predictable, then you need to have systems that always produce results. And physics provides you that framework. Chemistry, it all depends. Chemistry depends on the pressure, the temperature, the catalysts you're using. And boy, do we use catalysts. We're so good in chemistry that we make molecules that will never disappear. We make molecules that accumulate in polymers, and so we have these islands in the Pacific made out of plastics that will be there for 600 to 800 years, 1,000 years. And once they've degraded by UV, because we have somehow decided that we're going to have organic and inorganic chemistry, whereas what we should have is covalently bound and non-covalently bound chemistry. Chemistry that works like a zip, together and apart, and chemistry that you can't take apart anymore. And amazingly, we only teach this chemistry, only this one. The other chemistry, we delegated to the biologists. But we don't make polymers out of that. Why not? And in biology, everything is an exception. So, you may remember the little seahorse, right? What's the exception of the seahorse? The man bear the babies. So in nature, whatever rule you can see, there's an exception. That's why we call it biodiversity. Now, if you want to use biology as a basis for predictable food production, the only option you have is GMO. I'm not in favor of GMO. But genetically modified organisms is the only way you can control the biology, because otherwise nature will always go, whoops, berserk. And the seeds this year are never the ones for next year, and that's why you, quote unquote, you need Monsanto. Because they're always the same seeds, and they will twinkle with it. And then they're saying they're going to save the world. Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen. We have gone wrong because we believed that biology was going to make us sustainable, and we are turning the sustainable source of life into unsustainable source, which cannot respond to what we are expecting it to do. And if we were to look at physics, and you'll see the examples, it looks very different. Third principle, we have to get rid of the most blatant cases of our unsustainable production and consumption. You cannot believe how stupid we eat and sleep, how unsustainable we are. This one, who's using it? Well, only those with a beard in the front row from now on. Because if you use this machine, this is a disgrace. 100,000 tons of titanium end up in landfills because we use even 7 blades these days. We use these 7 blades in order to have a closer shave. Doesn't make sense, ladies and gentlemen. I'll bring you a solution. This year we will discard in the environment 40 billion batteries. 40 billion batteries. That means we have the greatest promotion of mining and smelting ever in history. Batteries need to be banned from our society, and I'll give you solutions. Coffee drinkers. Excuse us, excuse me, but you're wasting 99.8% of whatever you're consuming. For the little 2 grams you're ingesting, you are throwing away a kilogram. Why? And you didn't realize it. And if you're a vegetarian and you're eating shiitake, you're responsible for the destruction of the oak forest in China. You didn't make that connection. Because we think shiitake is cholesterol-free, rich in unsaturated fatty acids, a lot of good proteins. But unfortunately, the $1 billion business of shiitake from China destroys oak forests today, and we don't know. And so exactly the same thing that happened to me with my ecover and the rainforest is happening with the shiitake eaters and oak forests. We don't make the connection because we don't see how ecosystems work. And since we don't see it, we don't want to do that, but then we feel we're in a real strange bound. Do I now kill an animal to get my protein, or am I going to destroy the oak forest to do it? And this is where we have to get out. Because that problem only exists in the human mind. In ecosystems, this problem does not exist. And therefore, let's switch. The fourth principle I just want to remind you here of is that everything in nature has multiple benefits. What great! Let's translate it in business language. 4 cash flows instead of 1. Oh, interesting. If I have 4 cash flows, that business sounds more interesting than if I only have 1 cash flow, right? And so this is where we need to make the switch. Nothing in nature only has 1 function. Everything is multifunctional. So when we look at the famous bug from Namibia that gets water out of the air, well, yeah, that's just 1 function, but that same bug has 4 other functions apparently scientists don't even see. Because if I'm a scientist, I'm only going to look at 1 function. Business and science looks at 1 function, 1 discipline at a time. And while there is a lot of talk of breaking down the barriers, when it comes to acting in life, we don't do it. So indeed, you may know the projects that we run. You take the waste of the coffee, which is a hardwood, comparable to oak trees. You grow your shiitake mushrooms on it. And then the waste from the shiitake mushrooms, enriched with amino acids, is now great feed for the pigs. But if you were to give the waste of the coffee to the pigs, then they would get as stressed as some of us are when we drink too much coffee. But one of the functions of the mushroom was to break down that complex molecule of caffeine. And now we got 3 revenues from something that we have consistently been throwing away. Or some of you have been composting and therefore stressing out the earthworms.